Yeah.
No, so kind of catching up here with Michael, and he's been on the channel before. I was on his, and then I uploaded that conversation because I loved it so much. Uh, yeah, we're just catching up. So I got back from a 3 week trip, and a lot of things happening in Michael's life as well. And I think what we'll start with is kind of introducing you, explaining a bit who you are, and then I said offline, they'll be nice from the moment that I haven't spoken to Michael that much to get a bit more detail on how the last couple of months have been unfolding. And then we'll pick up the conversation from there. So take it away.
Great, great. Well, thank you, Lucas. It's a treat to be on your channel. Through the tributaries of this little corner, I found you several months ago now, and I started with just a keen interest on all the guests that you were having were guests that I was really interested in, learning more from John Vervaeke, DC Schindler, people like that. And then I've had the privilege to get to know you a little bit more recently, and as you mentioned, yeah, got to kind of sit down and interview you. A little bit about me. I'm Michael DeKlerk. I'm a graduate student in counseling psychology. I'm also, as of 2 months ago, an outdoor preschool teacher here
Oh,
in
wow.
here in Marin County. I know we now have the school teacher connection.
That's awesome.
Um, and so yeah, that's been a really interesting and wild ride, and I'm sure maybe we'll delve into that a little bit
Yeah.
too. And um, yeah, and I have a podcast called Beyond Ourselves that's kind of evolved from just a podcast now. I write poetry as well, and so I publish a lot of my poetry on there and on my Substack, and um, someone who is really interested in exploring all things meaning making,
Mm,
and whether that be through philosophy, psychology, and more recently, really interested in like embodied community making, and what that looks like both online in this weird, ecosystem,
mm.
as well as in person. So yeah, I guess that's like maybe a good launching off
Huh?
elevator pitch.
Oh, that's excellent. I don't know where to go. I think in one way, I'd like to go back further and, you know, get more about your childhood. But I think right now, what's good is to focus a little bit on the preschool thing to start with, because this
Hmm.
I didn't know about this. How did this come
Yeah,
to be?
yeah. I know I was trying to remember had I told you about this
Yeah.
or had I not. So maybe a little backstory might
Mhm.
might help to kind of get to this point. So um when I graduated college, I graduated with a sociology degree and a minor in psychology. And I thought my plan was to go to grad school for counseling. And I applied to like six or seven state universities in California, and I didn't get in anywhere, which was a huge bummer and something I really didn't foresee.
Mm,
And so I was kind of trying to figure out like what the next year would look like. And so I worked as a therapist for kids on the autism spectrum for about 5 months. And for a lot of different reasons, like kind of felt very burnt out with that. And so I stepped away from that, and so I was kind of just back at home, like applying for the next cycle. And I was just living with my mom at the time and my sister, and I just had a lot of idle time on my hands. And I picked up she had an old camera, and I picked that up and I started just going on these like long kind of just walkabouts in nature. We live right by the San Francisco Bay, and it's this
uh,
beautiful wetland environment.
mm,
And I would just go out. I would wake up at sunrise, crack of dawn, and I would go out and I would take photos, and I would just be doing that like all the time. And I just fell in love with nature. And so I was like, and at that time I was also really kind of getting into like, this little corner and kind of first Jordan Peterson, and then kind of getting really inspired with like a lot of just different voices about like, you know, taking up responsibilities, going on quests, like, taking risks and just
Uh,
really kind of being like captured by that. And so I was like, okay, I know like my kind of main quest, like my main thing is like psychology. And so I kind of had security in that. And I was like, what could I do for the next like year that would be like just kind of totally out of the box? And so I ended up applying to this 3 month conservation vegetation management job out in Wyoming, which um, I know you're in Europe. It's like a third of the country away from me. It's like a 15 plus hour drive.
that's crazy.
And and from the point that I applied and I got in to when it started was like 3 weeks. And I needed like all of this gear and like all this stuff. And I didn't tell my mom like until I got the position because I had the feeling she wouldn't approve.
Yeah, yeah.
And but that was one of the most impactful experiences of my life. And it just instantiated this love of nature, this love of the wilderness, and for service as well, like in nature. And so that planted a seed, and then then I had another job in a national park, actually very close to the area that I'm in now, and so I was looking for like in this year, at least this year, until my last year of counseling is like all my practicum. So like that year is kind of set in stone, like what I'll be doing. But this year is still kind of up in the air. And I applied and I found this job at this outdoor school, really close to where I used to work, this beautiful area right on the bay, like 15, 20 minutes from San Francisco, like just, rolling hills, like really gorgeous place. And um, it just felt right. Like the staff are, there's musicians on the staff, there's herbalists on the staff, there's nutrition, like there's just all these like really interesting backgrounds. And um, like I really believe in like the forest school model of like a play-based, nature-based education for kids, especially at that age. Like, they really shouldn't be in classrooms. Like they should be out
Mm.
exploring, getting muddy. And yeah, it's certainly had its challenges, but it's been a really beautiful experience. And, for me and my career, my vision for my career is doing like wilderness retreats with
Mm.
people. And
Yeah,
I think this is like and eventually like maybe getting into like regenerative agriculture and things
it's
like that. And
cool.
so this is, yeah, like a great kind of stepping stone to that.
Yeah, and you learn a lot in that time that you can take with you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. And they just let you teach so preschool, what age is that?
So yeah, so outdoor schools are they their kind of age brackets are a little different than like traditional preschools in America. So I'm working with like 3 to 5.5 year olds,
That's
and I'm on a team of four other teachers. And it's only one class, so it's like,
yeah.
yeah, four or five teachers at a time to about 20 to 25 kids.
You can take them outside and they learn about nature through that, or is it mimicking more like a classroom environment, but it's outside? Is it?
Yeah, so there are structured, and that's something that they kind of see me bringing more into is like the
Mm.
nature education.
Yeah,
There's a lot of story. So like we read from it's very inspired by like Montessori and
yeah,
Waldorf schools curriculums.
yeah.
And so a lot of our stories come from there. Um, a lot of our stories are just kind of like made up on the spot, and it's very like pagan inspired, like
Yeah,
kind of a lot of stories about like elves and witches and fairies and things like that. Lots of
Mhm.
singing, like lots of
Yeah.
songs. Um, and kind of yeah, lots of just like kind of unstructured play. Like we have like art supplies for them
Yeah.
every day, set out like drawing materials, Play-Doh, clay sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, like I'm really you know keen on like bringing more of the like kind of like nature awareness, like sit spot skills. Like a couple weeks ago, I facilitated a bird language little lesson for them.
Oh.
So I like recorded uh different bird songs like in the area and then like played them and told them like which species it was. And then I turned off my phone and then had them like, oh, like that one. Do you hear
Yeah.
that one? Like what species is that? And some of them afterwards, like during lunch, they heard a bird chirping in the trees and they were like, oh, that's a junco. And
Oh.
I was like, ah,
Yeah.
that's so cool. So yeah, I would say because they're so young, it's really just about getting them out and engaged with the world and like, not on screens um and so yeah, it's really like it really just allows them to be themselves and um that certainly doesn't come without like its challenges because like, I'm sure I don't know exactly the age of kids that you work with, but like it's a little easier when you have a contained environment if there's like a
Yes.
conflict or something, right? Like
Oh, man.
it is challenging, when like a kid is like hurting another kid and then he just has all this space to like run away from you as as a teacher.
Yes.
So it's the kind of double-edged sword of like you're giving them all this space to express themselves, but then that also means you're giving all this space for them to express themselves, like for good and for ill sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting environment. And I'm learning that it comes with its challenges as well as it comes with its
I
beauty.
can only imagine that because I went on a first little activity slash school trip recently to, well, it's an old prison from World War II,
Mm,
but
wow.
just the challenges it brings to take them into a different environment, to take them, like we went on public transportation that was already plenty challenging. And yeah, then you kind of manage them outside, walking in the street, yeah, going to a museum, stuff like that.
Right.
It's just a completely different game. And then the hardest experience I had thus far was just before I left to Malaysia. We had the Thursday is like Easter,
Mhm.
and in the morning there was a musical organized by the kids, and we had to kind of my group participated in it partially, but mostly they had to spectate. And so you're sitting in a church. The parents are all there, other groups of kids are there. And
Is this a Christian school or is it just
yeah,
a public school? Okay.
it's a Protestant Christian school. So we have in the Netherlands quite a lot of those. So even
Interesting.
though not a
Yeah.
lot of people are Christians in the Netherlands, I would say if you take surveys, it's definitely becoming less and less the case.
Mhm.
But the school system is often still Protestant. There's a lot of schools that are Protestant. We have public as well, and then we have Montessori. Um, but yeah, this is the school that I ended up with, and they have this Easter celebration. Anyway, this musical was a nightmare because they had these little trinkets they were wearing, and then they started playing with it. And you kind of have to
Yeah.
keep them quiet. And then some of the parents, they're also way too chill with their kids, so you
Say
can't
anything.
really,
Yeah.
yeah, when the parent doesn't isn't even on your side in helping the kid like calm down and just behave, then you're in a bit of a deep trouble. And then later in the day, we just didn't have classes, so we didn't have structure. So we went to play outside for like half an hour, and there was food, and there was this and that, and arts and crafts. And I just noticed how difficult it was. Like that was a real challenge. Um, Whereas
How old are the kids that you teach?
they're like 10,
Okay.
my current
Yeah.
group.
So that's like right in when they start defying authority, start
Yeah.
getting a sense of how much they can push
Oh
and
yeah.
yeah,
And I have
yeah.
a group of kids that are,
Especially the boys at that age, I would imagine.
yes, that's true, but I'm lucky to have a majority girls group, which makes the boys
Hmm.
a little bit more chill. It's
Yeah.
actually the girls that cause me more trouble because some are just looking for the English word. I don't know, like defiant, disobedient, like they challenge you a lot. They look at your, they try to find your boundaries. And so some are really impolite as well. I think I'm in a neighborhood that's, yeah, it's very working class. Some kids they have trouble at home, don't have a lot of
Hmm.
structure at home, and so they're used to kind of talking to their parents like knowing that they're not going to be punished for much of what they'll say, and that
Yep.
translates a bit
Yep.
into the classroom. But yeah,
Yep.
not to make this
Yeah.
about my experience, but it's
Yeah.
just to empathize with your challenges, and then especially I know that the kids preschool age that we have at our school, they're really difficult to manage. Mostly, it's a lot of conflict resolution. I find
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
what my colleagues tell me. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, I can really I mean, there's so much there. The I never realized, like when you're a kid, you kind of just know how you were raised. You're not old enough yet to have an awareness of like, oh, different parents parent their kids differently. And
yeah,
I was raised in like a zero tolerance, like
mm.
no talking back, like,
uh,
you know, shake, firm handshake, look at people, like all the etiquette
yeah, yeah,
things. And I could just and so it's just like it's so bizarre to me to like, there are some like really challenging kids at my school, like kids where their moms have had to been called, halfway through the day because they are just being so like saying terrible things like, I never want to be your friend again. I want to cut off your head, like, like and just like um and then to the teachers too, like there was this one kid who like his mom got called and apparently he was like, oh, so now that means like dad's gonna take away my video games, like, and you just want to you're just like complicit in that, like you just want to take my away my video games too. um and like their parents like I my colleagues have, because I'm new to the team, and my colleagues have said, some of the kids that have been troublemakers since the beginning, like there was one of my supervisors apparently saw one of like the most challenging kids like in a pizza restaurant outside of school, and he was like climbing on the tables, and they were just like laughing, like they just thought it was like cute, and she was like, what is, like, the cognitive dissonance is crazy. And yeah, and then you're kind of positioned as the teacher as kind of this like, all you are is the authority figure.
yeah.
All you are is the person that tells the kid no.
The
And
impediment.
and
Yeah,
then that really like fractures the relationship because the kid's afraid of you, and like you're not even being like mean or sinister. It's just like you're also just trying to control the room and like make sure the other kids are not being influenced and affected by that. Um, and yeah, it's been really interesting. Like I've just noticed how like I'm in like a very wealthy area.
mhm.
And this school is like $20,000 a year.
Yeah,
And so it's like wealthy techies
yeah.
are these kids' parents. And I've only been here for a short amount of time, and you only see the parents for like a little bit during the beginning of the day. But like the sense that I've gotten is a lot of the parents um are kind of like indifferent to their kids. Like they kind of have this like distance from it. And my colleagues have said, a lot of them, it's like they're wealthy and this is kind of like like an image thing for them to send their kids to this school.
Ah,
Like it's like, it's
understood.
like, oh, look, I'm sending my kids to this alternative school that's, that's doing all these great things. But like I'm not really taking up the philosophy of
Uh,
how the school treats, the kids, and like and where they yeah, like what type of person this school wants to kind of um embody that,
yeah,
like, and I think that's where a lot of the misalignment is too in this type of school, is like, we strongly encourage the parents not to expose the kids to screens, and yet we find again and again, kids are being exposed to screens and
yeah,
video games and things like that. So it's like it's it's just made me aware of like how much influence you have as a teacher, but also like how little influence you
yeah.
actually
How
have if
important it is that there's alignment in the household,
yeah,
that it
yeah,
gets taken. That you, yeah, that's difficult, and it's weird, to be honest, with your the situation you're in. Like the fact that people put kids in these schools without, you know, walking the walk themselves.
yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
yeah, it's odd.
And that's something that I kind of expected to see, right?
Yeah,
Like if you're making an intentional choice to like deviate from the kind of school system and invest all this
yeah,
money and
yeah,
this time,
exactly.
right? Like you think that that would like mean something, that would
Mhm.
carry with it, um but also like I I have to remind myself like a lot of these kids are in this type of school because they would not be able to succeed at a normal school.
I
Like
see.
they have they have ADHD, either if it's undiagnosed or diagnosed. They have OCD like tendencies. They have like hyperactivity. They can't sit still, all these. So like they're kind of like we're inheriting a lot of kids that like the normal school system would not really be able to handle. And I think that's part of, yeah, I think that's like kind of part of the responsibility, is to be able to like meet all of these kids where they are and try and provide an environment that allows for their idiosyncrasies to
Yeah.
yeah.
What do you think of it thus far, teaching?
I was talking with someone the other day, like the first 2 weeks were like so idyllic. Like we were kind of coming out of like the rainy season here. And so like spring was blooming, all these like beautiful plants were blooming. The kids are running in the tall grasses and they're, smelling the flowers, and for the most part they were behaving very well. And then they went on spring break and they came back like
Ah.
like devil children. And and um and it's really just made me aware of like the reality of teaching. And I'm sure where there's like certain days where it just saps you. Like it drains you, and it doesn't feel like the other side, like the positive side of making a difference and really engaging was there. But I have I've really loved it. I think it teaches you patience. It teaches you how to balance being an authority with being kind of more of a facilitator, and allowing the kids to just be themselves. Um, I think I'm still kind of finding my role and my niche, like what I'm kind of offering, and so right now I'm just really trying to build connections with the kids.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's been going really well. And yeah, they're also just they crack you up every day. Like
Yeah.
they're they're so funny.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, it's really beautiful, I think, to see kids in this environment because there's so much stimulus for them to connect with. Like they see a lizard on the side of the path and it's just like they're so obsessed with it. And
That was me on vacation. I've never seen lizards before.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember seeing that video. Yeah.
My wife is like,
Um,
"What is wrong with
wow,
you?"
I didn't realize that that was your first one.
Well, it's not my first. It's
That's
just we
crazy.
don't have them here, so it's like an exotic
Yeah,
thing, you know?
right, right. Yeah, yeah, totally. Um, yeah, so it's, I had a pretty sh tough week last week.
Mhm.
I just kind of felt like I was hitting a wall and I was struggling to um kind of like maintain my curiosity and my wonder and
Yeah,
my energy.
yeah,
And then I also had yeah, anyways, not important, but it's I it like it just feels real,
yeah,
like, and I I think I've been craving that experience of just like for all of the, you know, flaws and faults and difficult moments and times when you just kind of throw your hands up and you're like, I don't know what to do with this child kind of experiences. Like it just feels, um, it just feels real in a way that I am learning to love, learning to, or at the very least accept. And there are moments every day where I'm like this, just the feeling of like this is how kids should be educated. Like I see that
yeah,
in the way that they take care of plants and the awareness that they have of the environment around them. And um, I think for kids that age, it's hard for them sometimes to love their neighbor, but I think it's a lot easier for them to learn how to love like a plant or an
mm,
animal. And I think
yeah,
learning that and then kind of having that like
yeah,
scaffold up.
yeah.
Um, because I didn't learn how to love anything until I was like 20, like no one
Oh,
taught me that
really?
in school. Yeah, I
And
don't know.
did you not at all like it's is it just that you were never taught, or is it also that because you were never taught, you never experienced really that to love a thing?
I think it just, I mean, maybe that's like a little extreme, but I think like, when you're going through just like public school, especially like where I grew up, like in a very competitive area in Silicon Valley
Yeah.
and lots of immigrant parents and lots of high achieving like kids. Um, it very quick, like maybe like kindergarten, like first grade, there's still like the purity of just, like I remember just like having these like little like kind of cart bike things and I would just
Yeah.
like chase my friends around
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I have that memory
But
too.
like yeah, yeah. But like very quickly I just remember like it being all about tests and
Yeah.
achievement
Is that
and
already in primary school, or in the US you have primary, middle school?
primary. Yeah, yeah.
Did
Yeah,
you
like
already have it then?
I remember like fourth grade, so I was like uh eight,
Yeah.
7, 8, 9. Like we were doing like multiplication tables with math and like uh had homework and like there was I learned a lot of things. But even like recess time, like I remember like it just everything was so competitive. Like, even just playing basketball, it was like, uh, I remember there's this one kid who would like scold me for like not playing hard enough defense and
Oh,
stuff. And it was yeah, I never really there was not a modeling, and there was really not an emphasis on like doing things for their own sake and like finding the finding the beauty and expression and play. And I mean, maybe people paid lip service to it, but it um and it was certainly not a part of my home environment. um yeah. Oh, I think you're muted,
yeah,
Lucas.
sorry. Yeah, and I think I
That's
can
all right.
imagine that then that feels even more difficult when you don't get it in either place. Like for me, I think I grew up with disliking school and liking home. Uh,
Mhm.
Home being associated more with play and freedom, and it was the place where I could kind of relax. And then when I got into high school, it was the opposite,
Mm.
where I started to feel that home was where I was judged more and less at place. Anyway, to at least have one of the
Yeah,
places there. And I mean, I think when you don't have either, it can
right,
cause some issues.
right. Yeah, it's interesting. Like I definitely think school was like, well, it's funny. Like I did love, I do remember like distinctly loving my primary school years. Um, like there was kind of this special thing with our class, and our teachers would talk about it for like years after that. Like we were all kind of friends with each other. Like we all felt, I mean, there were like the popular kids and there were like cliques and stuff, but like we all kind of had this, I guess, this like mutual respect. And I had a lot of friends growing up.
Mhm.
Um, and I do a lot of do a lot of things outside of school with like different groups of people.
Yeah.
I Yeah, I just think um there was kind of this like underlying layer of like pressure and stress that I think everybody had to a certain degree, whether that be from like I was friends with a lot of like Asian and Indian kids, and
Yeah.
like the level of pressure that they had from their parents. I remember like in like sixth grade already, like was um so high. And
Yeah.
there was like I always felt like, I'd go over to my friend's house and I'm like, okay, when is his mom gonna kick me out? Like, when does he have to do Mandarin homework? Like, um, whereas I'm sure for a lot of kids, like that was not really
Oh.
like that was not really like a present thing for them. So it's interesting. I feel like I'm kind of
No, no,
losing
it's good.
losing
I,
the
I don't
thread a
even
little bit.
I don't even remember getting grades in school until I was like 12 and it started to matter where you would be,
Yeah,
kind of judged and um you would have to pass the year with certain grades. But before that, I didn't even know grades were a thing. Like I think I was blissfully unaware of it. And I think once they became a
yeah.
thing, like we didn't have homework growing up. And
Uh,
it's which is weird because I'm teaching in the same school system that I used to be in myself, but I don't remember ever
yeah,
having to make homework. And then that kind of also became a bit of a pitfall later on. But I am
right.
happy that I didn't have that, yeah, that kind of
Yeah.
pressure. Yeah.
I guess like what I've been reflecting on lately is how like even the places of play that I had, which were mainly like sports,
Mhm.
was like the main way that I would and sports and like video games, as
Yeah.
I'm sure most guys can relate to.
Yeah.
Um, they they were all like structured, if that makes sense. Like,
So
or
how was
most
your
of
video
them.
game structured?
Well, I guess that would be that would probably be like the lone example of like I just go to a friend's house and we just play whatever. But
Yeah.
like like every kid was like in like organized sports. Like I didn't really have many um I mean I had experiences of like yeah, just like going and playing like pick up basketball with someone,
Yeah.
just like texting a friend being like, "Hey, meet at the middle school in 5 minutes and stuff." But I think like everyone was like every aspect of our lives felt competitive. And
Mm.
so like I noticed like a lot of my friends, like I was never like a big basketball. I played a little bit, but I was always super scrawny and like, I could
You're tall,
shoot a
no?
little bit, but like
How tall are you?
I'm tall now. I'm tall now, but like when I was a kid, it was like I was like average height and like the scrawniest
I
kid.
see.
So I
Yeah,
I did I did really have a competitive advantage, but
I
like,
see.
all my friends were like in basketball from like young age and
Uh,
they couldn't really turn that off like and just play like a fun game.
yeah.
Um and I was just like found that interesting and like it's certainly been a part of like my complex. Like it's been like I feel like I'm still kind of learning how to just enjoy sports and like and still have I guess a fire to like
You will.
if I'm doing well, but like just having
Yeah.
no expectations of
And
the outcome.
I do get that a lot. Like if I seem tired, I had a tournament all day football. I played with the Colombian embassy, and I'm super competitive, and my voice is almost gone. I've been close to crapping up here. Uh, but yeah, I have that. But I think it was only when I started playing football in a like more relaxed environment 2, 3 years ago that I learned how to love it for its own sake and to play. And that within that I can be competitive, but it's all with an underlying love. Like that's what's most important, the love of the game, the love of play, the love of the people doing it. Whereas growing up, I think I definitely had the same issue where I couldn't enjoy like I didn't even like playing sports so much because I was so oh man. I was afraid too much. I had a big fear of failure, and then it became super competitive. And if I lost, I would just be devastated. And that reflected
Yeah.
in just watching sports, even like if my team would
Yeah.
lose, I would be really seriously having a bad day at school. The
Yeah.
next,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. So I realized that about myself. Um and 2 years ago I decided to train for a triathlon. Um and kind of my like main goal was like to love to learn how to love like the routine of um fitness and I feel like I really learned that like I really did love like as much as it kind of sucks sometimes going at 6, 7, 8 in the morning and
yeah,
doing a run or jumping in the pool.
yeah,
um I surprisingly, I was kind of really worried about like the bike because I had never really like actually biked for fitness. And it became like after the triathlon, that was basically all I was doing for
um,
cardio because I loved
you like it.
biking so much. And
What'd you like about it
that
opposed to swimming and running?
I think it gives you the opportunity to explore the
Mm,
world. Uh, and you're going at a pace where you can like bike 30, 40 miles and
yeah,
see a lot more,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
See a
that's
lot
true.
more of the world. Um, and for me, I enjoyed getting kind of into the rhythm and the flow. For me, like the runner's high is like really hard
Yeah,
to get to, but like the biker's high is like much easier.
I see.
Um, and and I just th for some reason like the kind of it was easier for me to bear the like the struggle of it than
Hmm.
I think the other two disciplines.
Yeah.
I do really love open water swimming. Like that
Okay.
being out like in a natural body of water, like
Yeah.
I've always loved water, and
That's
that
cool.
just like blisses me out.
That's
But like there's scarcely a better feeling than like biking up, a really high hard hill and working up a sweat and then going down it and just letting
yeah.
go and just like
That's
feeling
true.
the wind on your back. Like
That's awesome.
it's such an awesome feeling.
That's true.
Um, so yeah, that I feel like was kind of started a turn, but I've always kind of struggled with team sports.
See.
I was always an individual sport person as a kid, and um, especially sports with contact, like that's always been like a struggle for me. Kind of not like getting in my head and feeling like I let people down and things like that. Like there was kind of a comfort in knowing like I'm totally responsible for, kind of
Yes. Yes. There's not other
everything
people to disappoint or to
to blame or to disappoint. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know why. I think with my personality it would make more sense to like individual sports more as well. I think my wife is more similar to you, but I just love the I don't know why I love team sports. Where and it really doesn't make sense, but I think the it's like reality. And I really like I wanted to highlight what you said that you've learned to accept reality for what it is, or like you're pulled toward it as well. I think
yeah.
the embracing of it is the way to go. Like you're choosing it, and then it becomes a better thing. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I think the same with team sports. Like, there's a lot of things you just cannot control, and in that way, it mimics reality a bit. Like you have your own
Yes.
field of vision, you have
Yes.
your own things you can do, but there's a bunch of things happening, and people that might not play very well or be lazy and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Or you make your own mistakes, and then you have to be held accountable for it. But that's also reality,
Uh,
like
yeah. Adapting.
yeah,
I would, yeah. And that's what that's what I love like most about sports because it gets you out of your own head of trying to plan things all
yeah,
the time
yeah,
um and I see that like I can totally recognize that beauty of team sports because it's like oh you're trying to make this pass and then it bounces off of this person and now you got to
yeah,
like adjust and move and you're constantly alert and it gets you out of your like overthinking kind of ness, which
yes,
yeah, like for me, I was a golfer as a kid, and like that is like I've I've I have not played a sport with more unpredictability than golf because it's like, you have to account for the wind,
yeah,
the weather, the lie. You're never gonna hit a perfect shot. Like it's just it's
yeah,
like there's always gonna be something. It's gonna take a weird bounce here, and I always I always really loved that. Like I I don't know, I would watch like a sport like tennis or like basketball or whatever, and like obviously there's like so much entropy, but um I always just like thought it was funny, like, every basketball court's the exact same dimensions, every tennis court is the
yeah.
exact same dimensions. Obviously tennis you have like different
Uh-huh.
surfaces and stuff, but like every golf course, every hole is like
It's completely different. That's true.
every shot's completely different, and like you need to have like a short term memory to
Mhm.
to forget things. And yeah, I think it taught me a lot of like really great life lessons that I
Yeah,
think I only really realized after I stopped playing.
I see. And currently, are you training for something or doing something with sports?
I'm not training for anything right now. I I have been thinking about signing up for another triathlon. But I'm kind of still like, trying to ease into to work here and
Yeah.
yeah, just like
Yeah.
grad school too. And sometimes just, kind of doing enough fitness for a week is like
Yeah.
is a challenge.
It's a lot.
So
It's a lot. It's a job.
um yeah, yeah. So um but yeah, I've thought about like what like I had this experience a couple years ago of doing Polynesian outrigger canoeing. I don't know if that's something you're like familiar with, but it's like these
Uh,
like really long boats.
yes. Like
Yeah, it like
Moana.
originated in the Polynesian islands, and it's like five people on a boat. Um, and I had just one experience of doing it, and it's like there's it's so beautiful because like you have to be perfectly in sync like with the person in front of you. And there's also like a lot of like cultural rituals with it where they like blow like conch shells
Mhm.
before you like get in to kind of gather everybody, and all of the like vocal commands are like all in Hawaiian.
Yeah.
Um and I just like I had this experience where I was like I the only thing that I was focused on was like the person in front of me and how they were paddling. And I just like I was just in a flow. Like I just found myself like in a flow at after a certain point. And like I really like crave those experiences of like that like communal, you're like working towards something and you like have to be in complete harmony with everyone else.
Yeah.
um, so I've thought about, I have a former colleague who's a member of a team here. And
This is
they,
just a thing that you have over there. Like this happens.
yeah, yeah, it's like, and they have like all sorts of different kinds of races. I think it's bigger on the coast because like, then you're doing it in the ocean or the
Yeah.
bay. But I know people do it like in lakes and stuff too. There's this like the kind of biggest like worldwide race is like a 40-mile race between two Hawaiian islands.
Wow.
Uh, I don't know how in the hell you can paddle 40 miles on that thing. Like
So how long would that take about?
it's so hard. I have no idea. Probably like I don't know, 5 hours would be my guess or
Yeah,
something
that's
crazy
crazy.
like that. And I don't know, like I don't know if you're taking breaks, like it's wild. But
So,
it is something that I've contemplated
uh-huh.
starting.
So how's grad school? How's that going? Are you enjoying it? And can you remind me, is it online or
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
right?
It's all virtual. We have we have two 10-day
Okay.
in-person intensives a year, where it's a cohort model too, so like it's the same group of where we started with not eight and now we're at six. Um and so yeah, it's been going well. It's a it's a little bit of a challenge sometimes to like always be engaged because
Mhm.
there's some weeks where all we're doing is kind of just sending like out a discussion post and having, someone respond to it. And so it's sometimes hard to really feel like you're digesting the material at a deeper
Yeah.
level. But the experiential parts of it have been fantastic. Like it's like a very mind, body, soul
Mhm.
kind of philosophy school. So like we're doing like we have an Aikido class
Cool.
that we do, and lots of like somatic mind integration work. Um, and for me, just like the relationships that I've been able to build have been like the biggest kind of um, I mean, they've been the biggest joys and also like the biggest teachers of like, you know, having these conversations with other therapists to be about um like how would we counsel someone in that situation and things in our lives that we're dealing with, and being able to kind of practice our skills like with the people in our program. So yeah. And then, also kind of learning like the kind of more technical skills. Like I'm in a psychopathology class this
Oh,
quarter, so we're learning about like the DSM and like this last week we did reading on like schizotypal and like neurodevelopmental disorders, and
mhm.
I thought that was really interesting. Uh, Especially because I have a close friend who I actually met kind of through this little corner as well,
Really?
who yeah, who like he hasn't been diagnosed, but he has had a lot of like the schizotypal kind of
I see.
uh kind of like hallucinations, delusions, disconnections from reality. And he's like read a lot of literature about it and like has done like kind of deep work to like understand where it originates in himself and like how to heal from that. And it's been interesting um in this school because it's like a very like humanistic model in the sense that it's not it's not promoting like kind of like a CBT
Yeah.
type therapy of like taking a symptom and trying to change it, or trying to remove it. It's very much like let's try and understand and be
Yeah.
and invite curiosity around it. Like some of one of my psychopathology professors, she gave an example of like she worked in a hospital and there was a guy who came in and he he was saying like the like the military is spying on him and like
Mhm.
they're trying to extract secrets from him, and she just like was like okay, like that's um like tell me more, what's that like,
Yeah, yeah,
and like what does that feel like in your body to feel like someone is out to get you kind of
yeah.
thing. And yeah, I really resonate with that
Yeah, I like that approach. It's
style.
pretty cool.
And it, because like we all have stigmas about certain parts of ourselves that
Yeah.
we feel negatively about, right? And like if a professional is trying to kind of get you to push that down or
Mm.
to alter it or to change it, like they're basically communicating to you that this part of you is bad or wrong.
Yeah.
And that that stigma like compounded by more stigma, like it's never worked for me.
No,
And I've never observed it work for anyone else in my life.
man, I'm so happy that you're kind of have those experiences and then you're getting into this field because I think that's really valuable. Like I think you can be more aware of the pitfalls in that case. Um, and I like this idea of curiosity with especially with things where people feel already super misunderstood to then go up and tell them like what is wrong with them. And so you're not affirming their delusions if they are delusions,
Right.
but you are yeah, you're bringing a spirit of curiosity and you're trying to really understand a problem instead of either reject it or accept it completely. I think it's a good spot to be at with those things, you know?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's right. Yeah. It's um like my university's name is Sophia University after
Nice.
the Greek word for wisdom,
Yeah.
and it used to be called the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology. The founders of it were very good friends with Abraham Maslow, and
Hmm.
they were at like the cutting edge of the start of humanistic psychology,
Yeah.
which was actually birthed like in the area that I'm in right now in Marin County, and then the university about an hour south was founded, and so its pillars are the um the Maslow's pillars of like self-actualization,
Yeah.
and he actually, not many people know, he actually had like another pillar on top of that that like his own family was kind of trying to suppress, which I think was more to do with religious and spiritual
I see.
unity and oneness. So that's a really kind of interesting wrinkle to Maslow. But you know, the school is yeah, the school is like built on kind of that philosophy of um like inviting the spiritual into
Yeah.
the psychotherapeutic process. Um and you know, inherent in that is um facilitating experiences of like radical opening and
Mm.
curiosity
Yeah.
and wonder and seeing the good. You know, I think like uh, it's kind of been interesting for me in this period of my life where I'm exploring faith a lot more.
Hmm.
And I've started going to church and, you know, like I'd call myself now a Christian of trying to integrate the kind of therapeutic and the religious. And I was just listening to Bishop Barron, his sermon from this week, and he was talking about um which you know I like these are all terms that a fellow TLCer knows, but like agape, philia, and
Uh-huh.
eros,
Yeah.
and he was talking about like basically what love means for Christians, and you know he was making the argument that like for Jesus, love is the agapic love,
Yeah.
and and it essentially translates to like willing the good of the other, and I think it just hit me, you know, when I was talking earlier about like teaching and you know, kind of taking the good with the bad and
Mhm.
everything, and how like you know your job as an educator is to try and um help a child like I think realize the like good naturedness of
Yeah.
them.
Mhm.
Um, like even when they might be getting communicated by peers and other teachers maybe and parents like of all that is wrong with them and all that needs to be all that you know they need to fix about
Yeah.
themselves um to like somehow still like get underneath that to like what is this child or what does this person really want and then what are like all of the things that are kind of getting in the way of that
Yeah. Yeah.
like
So you mean
psychological wounding
realizing
like yeah
you mean realize in both senses of the word so that they can see it, they can realize, but they can actually realize that reality as well. Like they can develop themselves to become that, to work through the things that you're mentioning.
yeah
I'm
yeah
curious, because we're nearing an hour here. I haven't seen my wife
Hmm.
barely at all today, but I'm curious about two things. So I know the last question, but the first thing is I'm wondering how it's been to go to church. I don't know. Did you have church at all as a part of your life growing up?
yeah so for the first like 10 years of my life or so both of my parents were raised religious they were raised they grew up in South Africa and they were
Yeah.
raised in the Dutch Reformed Church.
Okay. That's coming back.
And so they came over here and we were raised Lutheran. Um, you know, we were Sunday school kids. Um, and you know, we got baptized and everything. And then at about 10 years old, we kind of suddenly stopped um, for kind of a few different reasons. But um, my mom regained her faith several years later after my parents divorced and then yeah I really only started going about like seriously like about a year and a half ago.
See,
um
that's been the journey.
yeah
And how's it been to kind of return?
yeah it's interesting because in a lot of senses I feel like I'm going for the first time. Like I feel like when I was a kid it was kind of I was also kind of too young to really have it like um make an imprint. And how has it been?
Yeah, like does it feel
Yeah.
like, because I'm gonna try to go back to church soon
Hmm.
after a long time.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think my stance to it has become different now that I have sort of like a more of a personal conviction of it, instead of, okay, I'm just a kid, I'm going to church. Um, Now I feel more of a sense of responsibility. Like I feel like, okay, I want to buy myself, I want to help out people. And I'm
Yeah.
wondering what it's like to go through that. It's out of my personal interest, because of course I'm going to be going through this thing. Do you have like advice for me
Mm,
in how
hmm.
I should go about
Hmm.
that, and what have you learned from going
Hmm.
into it?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I was kind of just like really trying to be delicate with the question and kind of try and answer it in the best way that I could.
Hmm.
I would say the the best thing that I have done is to try and connect with the congregation as much as I can. Um, like and in every church that I've been, like next to kind of how the word is preached, the the next most important thing for me is like how alive and how good natured does the body of Christ feel? Because that ultimately, especially if I hear you saying, like it sounds like you don't just want to go to church, extract the message, and then go home. Like it's a lot deeper
Definitely.
for you.
Yeah.
And um, I've really just tried to engage as much as possible with as many different people as I can and learn about their stories. Um, like learn about like what church means to them and uh why this particular church. I think those are all really valuable conversations to have, especially when you're deciding on a church to really hear from people. Um, but also just like learning about them as people, their lives, their
Yeah.
families,
Yeah.
their likes, their dislikes. Like it adds more texture and it communicates to people that you really care about them as opposed to just um what, you know, listening to a sermon or
Yeah. Yeah.
singing in the choir can do. Like I've almost always been the last person to leave, like the like coffee hour
Wow.
after church.
That's
And
inspiring.
like I lived here last year for 6 months, and then I was going to a church in San Francisco and left for a period of time, and then came back and like um people like missed me, like
Yeah.
there was an imprint there. And I'd also like facilitated some circling and like
Yeah.
authentic relating stuff at the church.
That's
So
cool, man.
um
That's really
I
cool.
also wanted to be able to give that and like I also knew like the congregation is like open and curious
Yeah.
to that. It wasn't like here's my
Yeah. Yeah.
gift
Yeah.
and like um and so yeah, that would be my biggest piece of advice is um like really invest in the relationships. And I think also like I don't know how it is for you, but I really didn't know where to start in terms of like what denomination,
Yeah.
or am I Protestant, am I Catholic, am I Orthodox, am I
Yeah.
and like which sect of and in our world there's so many different voices from different strains of Christianity talking about the value of those. And I kind of found myself kind of getting tripped up on what should I be, and even
Yeah.
now to a certain extent. And I think just what has helped me is realizing and hearing from certain people, like I think Pajot talks about this a lot, that like we're all we're all one unified Christianity.
Mm.
Like we're all at the end of the day worshiping the same God, and more or less care about the same things. And so I think follow your heart about what feels the most true to you, if that's Orthodoxy, if that's Catholicism, if that's Protestantism, if that's maybe not Catholicism, but like the specific way that this Catholic
Yeah.
church orients itself. Like, um, I don't know if you have that complex, but if you do, I would just say like trust your heart and I think the getting to know people part also like it pulls the veil behind the kind of very beautiful like parts of church, and it really helps you understand like is this a place of integrity? Like
Yes, yes, yes. By their fruits you
and
shall know them. So you
yes,
find out
yes,
through the people. I see.
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so and just in knowing you, I know you have like you're a man of integrity and you have a good pulse on um bullshit. So I don't envision I don't envision that being a problem
Thanks
for
for that.
you. But yeah.
Man, that's really great advice. Um, I don't know, I feel so tomorrow morning I'm starting this adventure. I I'm gonna start going to like a Catholic church, and it largely has to do with, well, largely, let's say the closest church here is Catholic, Roman Catholic,
Hmm.
and what I like about it is the how international it is. So it's
Hmm.
English and it's English speaking, and it's a lot of people from Africa and Italy and Spain and stuff like that, which I connect with myself. Like I grew up in a Protestant church that's everyone was old and like this
Right.
dad was dying, like it was literally dying. And I feel this thing of by their fruits you shall know them with this church. I feel like it's really alive and they're organizing a bunch of stuff and you know, so I the community aspect is really important for me there. And then
Totally.
there was also this Orthodox church, which is like Coptic, which really appealed to me. I was very attracted by it and the mystic side of it. Um, but at the same time, like if I'm real and I think, okay, where am I going to have a bigger impact? Where is my work more meaningful? And then also, I do find certain parts of Orthodoxy difficult in terms of well, I'm really almost disappearing. The sun is setting really quickly. Sorry about that. Normally I have my little light, but I was hoping the summer coming in will carry me through it.
To not have to use it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but yeah, Orthodoxy, I do still struggle with certain things that, even though I understand, like Pearson explains this, you have the Orthodox, and it's good to have the Orthodox and then to have the Catholic and the Protestant, and all those things balance each other out. I find it difficult to be that uh, strong in things. Like to be very openly like, okay, we disapprove of any homosexuality, so like you cannot enter our community. Uh, if you carry any, like I find that difficult.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so
Yeah,
then this
I do
this
too.
this Catholic, yeah, this alternative, it helps me. and it,
Yeah.
and I feel for the first time that I can fully go into it. Whereas maybe with Protestantism, I would still have too much of my youth. Like we were talking about competition in sports and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Even though I
Hmm.
may rationally understand that it's good and this and that, and there's hurdles that I could jump over in action, it still feels like not an oppressive structure, but a structure in which I can't fully embrace the reality that I'm in, and I want to be able to. Uh,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I'm curious, are you going with your wife? Like is it something that you see both of you doing together? Is that an important part of it as well? Or is it just you?
It's going to be me. I think my wife is, she's not explicitly a Christian, although in action, she's one of the most Christian people I know, in the sense that I think she acts in a way that I can look up to. She treats people in a way
Yeah.
that I can look up to. And the difference we have, I love. I she's a yoga teacher and she's really educated. Like she was educated in India, and
Oh wow.
she has practices that, and she lived there for years too, in Malaysia, which is where we returned. Um,
Mhm.
she has practices that, to me, are like really good answers to the meaning crisis that she shares with people as well. And she finds, yeah, she doesn't connect as much to church, and at the same time, she's the one that convinced me to go. You know, like
Mm.
while we were out on our honeymoon, belated honeymoon, I had this conversation with her and I kind of explained where I was at. And I had this conversation with DC Schindler and Matthew a couple of weeks ago.
Hmm.
It kind of
Yeah.
really started to make me think and question things for myself. And I explained where I was at, and I was like, maybe I should just go back to that church over here, like 3 streets away. And I think that might be a really good thing. And she was like, yes, you totally should. Like, that would be a
Mm.
good thing.
Mm.
Um, so I cherish the difference we have in that. And I cherish that she in no way is like judgmental or um I don't think she really has any big trouble with my faith. I just think she doesn't connect to it as much. And I really think her, you know, Vivek explains like we have a biblical grammar, us in the West, and like that's just something we have. I think she's really quite differently wired um, because of having lived in Asia for a lot of her life. Like
Mhm.
it's very interesting to observe. So I learn a lot from her, and I don't need her to come with me. Um, and if she ever would,
Yeah.
I would be happy about it. But like I said, for me, there's specific circumstances in which I can experience something as not an oppressive structure or not a structure that I can't feel at home at, and I feel like this might be one for me that could work. But I think for
Hmm.
her, it might not be. For example, like there might
Hmm.
be a lot of
Hmm.
hurdles for her that just don't make sense yet, and maybe later
Yeah.
that changes. But I don't need it to.
Yeah.
Like I think there used to be a part of me that was like really hoping for that, but now I really appreciate the difference. You know, this idea of
Hmm.
like having different cultures in your own country, like the difference between toleration and appreciation. I think I'm really trying to lean into appreciation. Um,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah. I remember listening to something a while ago that like someone was like, toleration is like the bare minimum.
Yeah,
Like there's toleration is not a virtue, basically. It's
yeah,
what is what they were communicating. And yeah, that's really beautiful. I asked because I know and I've observed like people who are rejoining faith and they have a partner who's also doing that.
mhm.
um it just adds another dimension of like,
Yes,
you know, you want to feel home yourself, but you also want to feel
yes,
like your
yes.
partner is at home
Yeah,
with you,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
If you're going together. So I know that that can be
It's
complex. And
difficult.
I think that's so beautiful that like she she has a, you know, she has a different frame for
Mhm.
um and a different path, like a different spiritual path that she's on. And um that gives her meaning, but and I'm sure community and
Yeah,
wisdom but like there's it does sound like there's an overlap between the two of
definitely.
you, that like that you can be home together even
Mhm.
though um you're, you know, you're going down the Christian path, her path is different, at least for
Yeah,
now. And
yeah.
um I think that that speaks to the kind of unison
Mhm.
between all of these different traditions.
Yeah,
Um and I think it's it's quite rare for someone to like a Western person who has more Eastern sensibilities to still be sympathetic to
Yes,
Western
yes,
tradition.
that's what I admire
Like
so much about it.
especially in our generation. Because I
Yes.
mean I mean here where I am, it's like there's yoga teachers, I can spit and land on a yoga studio. And
Yeah.
like I don't think most of those people,
Mhm.
if you told them you were Christian, would respond positively or would see that actually we have more in common than we
Yeah,
uh have difference with each other, and that's just a beautiful thing to have, man.
thanks. I think that's a good place. I did have another question, but I think what I would like to do,
I
I'm really happy with getting this broad introduction and talking to you and getting a sense of your orientation at the moment. Um, and so for the next episode, if you'd be willing to come on again, I would like it to dive into something. We can pick something
yeah,
like pick a
yeah,
poem or something like that, or a work we both read, and then kind of talk about that. I think that'd be super cool.
I
But
love that. Yeah.
it's always a joy and like refreshing and good to speak to you. Your ability to listen, to ask questions, to yeah, to hold space. It's I understand why people miss you when you're not there. So
Well, thanks, man.
keep doing this beautiful work.
I feel the same about, yeah, I feel the same about you. There's a real skill that you have and just in tracking and finding every seemingly finding something interesting in everything that, or at least something that someone is saying.
Mm.
Because I felt like I was kind of all over the place today, and I've kind of just had an all over the place week. So, but I felt like, you were able to still really listen well and still find something worth following, and in all your interviews. That's that's always been something I've really appreciated. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, go spend some time with your wife,
Thanks, man.
before the day is done.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll catch up soon.
Thanks. Definitely we'll stay in touch. And I just want to tell you, like, I'm deeply interested in you as a person to start with. So anything you say, I'm wanting to pick up stuff, but I don't feel like you're all over the place at all. Um,
It's good.
like
Good.
this is all super helpful for me. Like this journey, this is reality as well, right? Like the messiness and
Yeah,
feeling like everything's everywhere. Yeah,
yeah.
that's super
And
stuff.
yeah, and please, I'd love to hear kind of how your church journey goes.
Yeah,
And just more broadly your faith journey, and would love to be, yeah, to be alongside you in that. Because I mean, in a weird way, even before you started going to church, some of your interviews really
yeah,
propelled me
yeah.
into church. So
Isn't it?
it's kind of a wild thing how that works. And so I feel like we can both be kind of a guide and the guided for each other.
Yeah,
And yeah,
yeah. We could
I
do a
would
cool
I would
episode
I would
about that. I
love.
feel we could
Yeah,
reflect on that
yeah,
a bit. That would be cool. That's a
yeah,
cool topic too.
yeah, and kind of like bring our experiences, and um I feel like there's not too many people on the TLC like fresh
Yeah,
back
yeah,
into
yeah. Yeah, most
church, who
people
are
are
kind of
seasoned.
like in real time, like yeah, in real time being like,
That's
this
true.
is what I'm going through.
That's
So
fun.
I
Yeah,
think that would be a cool thing.
that definitely be a cool thing. Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
All right, Michael. We'll stay in touch.
All right.
We'll organize
Yep.
something, and this is great. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Have a
Take
good day.
care.
Have a good day.
Blessings.
Blessings to you.